In the heart of an ancient desolate town, a chilling discovery was unearthed. A hush falls over the land as the sun sets, casting long, eerie shadows upon the forgotten structures. Once bustling with life, now a mere ghost town, the echoes of its past inhabitants seem to whisper in the wind. Among the town's crumbling stone houses and dusty cobweb-laden archways, an archaeologist, driven by insatiable curiosity, stumbles upon something extraordinary. Hidden beneath layers of earth, untouched by time and the elements, he finds an artifact. A book, ancient, with a cover worn by centuries, inscribed with symbols that challenge the limits of his knowledge. Its pages, though brittle with age, hold a mysterious allure, a promise of secrets yet to be deciphered. The archaeologist, a man of science and history, is drawn in by the find. His heart pounds with the thrill of discovery, the anticipation of unearthing a story lost to time. The book, he surmises, could hold the key to understanding the town's history, its demise, perhaps even its people. The symbols, foreign and intricate, beckon him, a puzzle begging to be solved. Unable to resist the pull, he carefully wraps the ancient book, cradling it as one would a priceless treasure. The town, bathed in the soft glow of twilight, watches in silence as he departs, the artifact safely tucked away. His mind races with possibilities, theories and questions. What secrets does the book hold? Who were its authors? And why was it abandoned, left to be forgotten in this desolate town? Back at his home, the archaeologist settles into his study, the book laid out before him. His fingers trace the symbols, the anticipation building. A sense of unease, however, lingers in the back of his mind. A small voice of caution whispers, but he brushes it off, his curiosity overpowering his apprehension. Little did he know, the book he had discovered was no ordinary artifact. The night grows darker, the shadows in his study deepen, and an ominous tale is about to unfold. As night fell, the archaeologist sat down to study the mysterious book, oblivious to the ominous storm brewing outside. His heart pounded in his chest, a symphony of anticipation and fear that echoed through the silence of his study. He traced his fingers over the worn cover, feeling the engraved symbols that threatened to reveal secrets as old as time itself. With a deep breath, he opened the book, the brittle pages whispering tales of yore. His eyes danced over the cryptic symbols etched into the parchment, each one a puzzle, each one a key to unlocking an ancient mystery. The room around him seemed to fade into oblivion as he immersed himself in the arcane text, his mind a whirlwind of conjectures and hypotheses. As he began to decipher the symbols, he felt a chill run down his spine, like a ghostly finger tracing his vertebrae. The atmosphere in the room changed, the air growing colder, the shadows growing darker. The wind howled outside, its mournful cry a haunting symphony that underscored the growing unease. The room seemed to pulse with an ethereal presence, an unseen force that grew stronger with every symbol he deciphered. The wind outside raged, battering against the windows like an angry beast trying to claw its way into the sanctuary of the study. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within, the two forces intertwining in a dance as old as time itself. As the room darkened, the archaeologist felt a sense of dread creep into his heart. The symbols on the pages seemed to shimmer, their meaning becoming clear. He was not just reading a book, he was casting an ancient curse, a spell that was unleashing an entity long forgotten. His eyes widened in realization, but it was too late. The room was enveloped in an inky darkness, the only sound the rustle of the ancient pages and the distant rumble of thunder. He had deciphered the last symbol, the final piece of the puzzle. As the last symbol was deciphered, he had unknowingly invited an ancient evil into our world. In the ensuing days, strange and terrifying events began to occur. The archaeologist, once a beacon of reason and logic, found himself thrust into a realm that defied comprehension. A world where the very laws of nature seemed to bend and warp in the face of an unseen terror. The objects around him began to rebel against their inert status. His tools would dance on their own accord, papers fluttered in still air, and books toppled from shelves without a touch. This invisible force played a cruel game, a puppeteer pulling unseen strings, making a mockery of the physical world. As if the rebellion of inanimate objects wasn't alarming enough, the wind began to whisper sinister secrets. It was as though the very air he breathed was tainted with an ancient malevolence. Every gust brought with it a hushed voice, a spectral sigh that echoed in his ear. The whispers, incoherent at first, grew louder and more distinct, weaving a tapestry of terror that chilled him to the bone. The apparitions were the worst, ghostly figures that lurked at the periphery of his vision, always just out of sight. Yet he could feel their presence, a chilling sensation that crawled up his spine and whispered of dread in his ear. They were like shadows that flickered and danced, a spectral ballet of horror that held him captive in its ghastly performance. The once proud and rational archaeologist was now a shell of his former self. Fear gnawed at his mind, paranoia his constant companion. He began to question his own sanity, the world around him no longer making sense. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, his every waking moment filled with a creeping sense of dread. He had dared to delve into the unknown, to uncover secrets buried deep within the earth. His thirst for knowledge had driven him to this point, his curiosity a beacon that had lured him into the darkness. Yet, in his quest for understanding, he had stumbled upon something far more terrifying than he could have ever imagined. In his quest for knowledge, he had unleashed something he could not control. With his sanity hanging by a thread, the archaeologist decided to face the unseen terror. His mind teetered on the precipice of madness, but there was a glimmer of resolve in his eyes, an unwavering spirit, a spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. Haunted by the chilling specter of the ancient evil he had unwittingly unleashed, he was determined to rectify his mistake. The archaeologist knew he couldn't run, couldn't hide. This was his battle to fight, his final stand against the unseen terror. The book, the very object that had kick-started this nightmare, now lay in his trembling hands. It was a grotesque paradox, a Pandora's box of dark secrets and forbidden knowledge, but it also held the key to his salvation. Amidst the cryptic symbols and cryptograms, he found what he was desperately searching for: a counterspell, a beacon of hope in the engulfing darkness. The words on the page seemed to shift and dance before his eyes, the ancient language a labyrinth of complexity and obscurity. But the archaeologist was undeterred. He'd faced the unknown once. He could do it again. His mind, strained and stretched to its limits, began to decipher the enigmatic text, each symbol falling into place like a complex jigsaw puzzle. The air grew colder, a palpable dread hung heavy. The unseen terror was close, its malevolent presence a poisonous miasma. But the archaeologist, driven by an indomitable will, pressed on. He uttered the words of the counterspell, his voice steady, resonating with an unspoken power. The world seemed to hold its breath, the silence deafening. The archaeologist could feel the ancient evil recoiling, writhing in the face of the counterspell. He pushed on, his voice growing stronger, the words of the spell a symphony of defiance against the ancient terror. In a final act of courage, he cast the counterspell, banishing the ancient evil back to where it came from. The archaeologist stood alone, the silence echoing his victory. He had faced the unseen terror and emerged victorious. His final stand had not been in vain.